I want to welcome everybody to the Daily Cheat Sheet here with the dude, Golan, of course. The band is together, and I just want to thank everybody for all the downloads, all the reviews, and there is a lot in the news. And I think one of the biggest things, obviously, that got Trump elected were all the persecutions and prosecutions. But at the same time, so many people in conservatives or in the MAGA world were being prosecuted and persecuted simply by being in Trump's orbit that we were praying for the day. And I don't want to call it retribution necessarily, although it sort of feels like retribution, man. It's protecting democracy in the future. It's making sure that rogue prosecutors, rogue judges, rogue everything can't come after a party just because they despise them. So I love that Pam Bondi today is going against Letitia James, and they're bringing up charges, or God willing.
Yeah, they should. The way it was phrased for the last administration couldn't say it enough, which was nobody's above the law. So nobody's above the law. This is so great. I feel like doing a dance. Nobody's above the law dance. It's coming for you. Letitia James, Adam Schiff, all those liars. You know, we're seeing it again play out. And I know you guys discussed this the other day. We're seeing it play out in real time where these people are grandstanding about gerrymandering in Texas, where Texas is redrawing their districts. You look at some of these Democrat locations, they have the most gerrymandered districts in the world. Like California is going to do it more. 40% of Californians voted for Trump. I think it's less than 12% representation in Congress for Republicans in California. They've gerrymandered it all they can. What are they going to do? There's nothing left. You're out of ammunition. Same thing goes for Chicago, Illinois. Look at District 17, I believe it is, in Chicago. It's just a skinny line that just goes for as far as the eye can see to get as many Democratic voters so they get more members in Congress for their party.
I've never seen you so excited about talking about gerrymandering, but I think the funniest thing is there's one Republican seat, I think, and I want to say Maryland. And he's like, he's like talking about the dangers of gerrymandering. And he's like, I'll lose my one seat. We're okay with you losing your one seat in Maryland if we could gain 10 seats in California, like you just brought up, which is what Stephen Miller is bringing up, is if you actually do a census, a real census, then we would have a lot more seats in the House. Just so people understand, it's 52 seats here, I believe, and we only have 9 of those seats.
Massachusetts, 40% of the vote went to Trump. They have zero Republicans in that locale.
Yeah, this is a huge thing. Listen, it's a big thing in Pennsylvania too. Let's not kid ourselves. That's why the red wave wasn't a red wave, was because Pennsylvania literally went blue in every single district. Almost every single district.
I realize we're talking a lot about gerrymandering, but many people may not know what that means. I'm sure they've heard it in the news, but maybe they don't understand the actual definition of it. So very quickly, just for our listeners, gerrymandering is where literally the lines on the map are redrawn based on district in order to try and encapsulate as many people from one side of the aisle within that redrawn line as possible. So in other words, if we have a square and within that square, we have 50% Republicans, 50% Democrats, okay, then we'll have a 50-50 split. But if you redraw the line to circle just where the Democrats are in this squiggly weird thing, as Men was talking about, with that weird straight line that goes across, then you capture one side of the aisle within that district. And basically that district becomes a Democrat district or a Republican district because of the way the lines are redrawn. So you literally are, if it's a square and here are the Republicans down here, you literally go, I'm going to go around the Republicans. And so for those of you not watching, I'm just moving my finger around arbitrarily in the air to try and redraw a district.
Like I said to you on yesterday's show, if the census didn't matter, we wouldn't have a census. It's this great liberal lie of everything, right? Don't have voter ID, but have ID for everything else. It makes no sense. So you either have a census or you don't. You either have a country or you don't. You either have ID with everything or you have no ID with anything. Scarily, I think oftentimes the left doesn't want ID on anything.
To me, the no ID thing, I don't even understand how this is a conversation. It doesn't make any sense to me. everything I do, I need to show ID. I want to show my Visa card. Here's my ID. I want to drive. Here's my driver's license. I want to buy a concert ticket. Half the time they need to see that my ID matches the name on the ticket these days. I don't even understand how the most important thing one can do for their country, and also the thing that determines ultimate power. And as we know, the president of the United States is considered the most powerful person in the world. Choosing that guy requires no ID. It doesn't even make sense to me. I don't even understand the conversation unless you are trying to game the system. So let's put that aside for a moment. The census itself is incredibly important. And it's incredibly important because I don't know if everyone realizes, but the census is how we determine how much power each location gets. So the more people that exist in a certain location, the more voices they have within the halls of power. The census is literally considered a blueprint for political power in America. It decides how many seats each state gets in Congress, how many electoral votes they have, how many billions in federal funding each state is allocated. If you game the system, you tilt the entire playing field. We count illegal immigrants in the census as if they're citizens. Can you imagine how crazy that is? People who aren't supposed to be here literally shape the number of House seats a state has. People who aren't supposed to be here literally determine how many electoral votes someone has, how much money a state gets. That means that states that enforce immigration laws get punished, and sanctuary states get rewarded. If you can flood certain districts with non-citizens, your political map just shifted without a single vote cast, simply by allowing a state to say, we're just not going to enforce the law. That's not a numbers game. That is a power heist, pure and simple.
But I want to get back to this Tish James thing, because I think it's so important that people don't realize this is nothing to do with weaponizing the DOJ. This is making sure that prosecutors and attorney generals can't just prosecute us for no reason.
I think one thing these guys don't understand, it keeps on coming back to bite them in the butt, is what they do comes back.
The boomerang.
When they weaponize the DOJ, now the DOJ is going after them, not weaponized, but nobody's above the law thing. When they talk about getting rid of the filibuster, it's going to hurt them as well. When they talk about packing the Supreme Court. So packing the Supreme Court just involves when there's a Democratic elected president like Joe Biden, he would add maybe 3 more Supreme Court seats that he gets to choose. And then you would have 3 liberals on the court. But then the next time Trump gets into office, he's going to add 6 more Republicans. And next thing you know, you have a 300-person panel that's a Supreme Court. It just doesn't work. So packing the Supreme Court doesn't work, yet they continuously talk about doing that. So they continuously talk about doing things that they don't want to happen to them, but then they open up the door to it. So you talk about all the illegal donations and the money that went out through USAID to all the NGOs that then came back and gave it in the form of donations to the Democratic elected leaders. That's bribery. Getting rid of that is the way to go. And these guys just don't get it.
You raise a great point, but it's also important to say they do that for cash. Obviously not the Letitia James. They're doing that for payback and retribution. But when they talk about packing the Supreme Court, it's all for cash donations. It's all because it is almost nearly impossible to get the votes these days to pack the Supreme Court. But just that they think about it is scary enough, man. Golan, this Letitia James thing is pretty awesome. I am so glad that Pam Bondi, and I'm tired of people knocking Pam Bondi, Golan. I think this is incredible what she's doing and the work over there that they are doing. So good for Pam Bondi.
Look, you said it perfectly. It's not retribution. Ultimately, they're actual crimes that were committed. The problem is that when one side of the aisle decides they are going to go after their political opponents for no reason, just unfounded accusations, time and time and time again, how can they not expect it to come around? Like you said, the boomerang effect. It's not weaponization, it's course correction. For years, and we know this to be true, Letitia James has treated the Attorney General's office like her personal opposition research arm. Right? She's openly campaigning on I'm going to get Trump. That was before she was in office, before she even knew what she was going to go after him for. That's clear weaponization. So if she's going to do that without a shred of evidence, I'm sorry, that's not justice. That's just a vendetta on the government dime. And she cannot expect for it not to come back around. I love the phrase boomerang because that's really what this is. And we'll see it over and over again, whether it's the weaponization of trying to cancel the filibuster, whether it's the weaponization of trying to pack the court, whether it's the weaponization of trying to add new states. All of these things are things that are clearly being done in order to skew the political system now and for years in the future. And if an AG can run a case on pure politics, boasting about it on the campaign trail, it's necessary to scrutinize her. It's necessary because that is the opposite of what a government official is supposed to do. Otherwise, we're saying the rules only apply when the political winds blow in one direction. And it's time for us to put our foot down. In this particular case, there are very clear things that she has done incorrectly, as you pointed out, right? That Pam Bondi is saying that the first of the 454 million civil fraud case against Trump, the lawsuit against the NRA, probing whether James deprived Trump of his civil rights, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Basically turning her legal crusade into a criminal inquiry. Enough is enough already.
So their levels of depravity of using the courts knows no bounds. And I'm glad Republicans are finally fighting fire with fire. And these people in Texas have got to get back at a certain point and delaying the inevitable. And we brought this up the other day. These tricks aren't working anymore. The American people are not buying it. This isn't Trump 1.0. This is Trump 2.0, where he has such a solid cabinet that these shenanigans are just not working.
Yeah, I think in Trump 1.0, he was trying to reform a lot of these organizations. And I think Trump 2.0, he's actually coming in with a wrecking ball. And he goes, we're just going to dismantle it and rebuild it. And it's the way to go. 1.0 would be like trying to come in and play nice diplomatically. 2.0 is let's just rebuild. We know it doesn't work. And the data that came out with the weaponization of the Russia hoax recently by DNI Tulsi came out with all that info, just shows you how deep and how high that corruption went. It went all the way to Obama. He knew it. They all knew it was a lie. They knew it was fake, yet they pushed it out on the American people. And it had real repercussions because we then placed sanctions on Russia based on that fake Russia hoax thing.
Obviously, yeah, it's no good. And I don't want to see Republicans doing this either, but we have to do it. These are things we have to do. It's something I was screaming about for years about, we have more attorney generals in the United States, yet we seem to never be able to get things done with our attorney generals. Like, I want to move on, though, to this is quite a story. I love how they phrased it. New York Times, but the New York Post. President Trump has secretly ordered the Pentagon to begin using military force against certain Latin American drug cartels that his administration has designated as terrorist organizations. I love that they say he's secretly doing it, so now it's no longer a secret. So whatever jackass over there decided to leak this story, but again, this is a non-story. This is great. The only people I could think this would bother would be the non-interventionists, because I can't think of anybody that this story would bother in the Republican Party.
Look, it's the same attitude that he took with Iran. We are a superpower. We have all the might in the world. And then you have these drug dealers south of the border that have killed hundreds of thousands of Americans. Why are we letting these hyenas keep on nipping away at our youngest and brightest that fall for their drugs and wind up dead? A lot of these kids, they think they're taking an Adderall to study for a test, but it's laced with fentanyl and they're dead. It's unacceptable. Yes, we have the might, we have the power, and he should be using that. You don't want to use the stick. You want to, dangle the carrot, which we've done. Mexico gets, I think, $47 billion in remittance. That means workers, illegal aliens, and legal aliens that have come here from Mexico send back every year $47 billion with a B dollars to Mexico, to their families. They call it remittance. Mexico flooded the U.S. They facilitated and flooded the illegal migration to the U.S. because it benefits them in a massive way. So dropping the hammer on that, as well as locking down the border, but then taking out these drug dealers, these drug gangs, these cartels that have facilitated those things along with the Mexican government. But we can't go to war with the Mexican government just yet. But we could take out the cartels, and they should be taking out the cartels. I love it that he stationed a couple of ships off the Gulf of America with Tomahawk and cruise missiles as a message to these drug cartels. What are you going to do? You have a couple of AK-47s? Great. We have a battleship off your coast. We know where you are. And that was a warning. What was that? 6 months ago. So here it comes. Start taking them out.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. At the end of the day, if cartels are pouring fentanyl and death across the border, then I don't understand why it has to be a secret or why it would be controversial to use every tool at your disposal to stop it. Calling it covert is like another way of undermining what Trump is trying to do, undermining his foreign policy, undermining his domestic policy. To me, the translation is the adults are in the room again. We finally have a White House that is willing to designate major Latin American cartels pouring drugs into our country as foreign terrorist operatives. And I think it's important for us to do that because it empowers the Pentagon and the DOJ and the CIA to act. And I don't care if it's overt or if it's covert or if it's an open secret, or if it's a closed secret. It's not some shadow plot. It's national security strategy. It's time for us to stop this. The number of deaths by fentanyl that we've had in the United States has increased exponentially over the last number of years, and it's time we do something to turn off the spigot. The leaks claiming Trump's operating in the shadows is just noise. Who cares about any of that? What's real is there's an executive order dispatched straight to the Pentagon authorizing military planning, which includes, by the way, naval operations, raids, aerial surveillance, anything that is needed to dismantle cartel infrastructure. That is just being responsible and taking care of your citizens. Marco Rubio, he helped pull this thing off. He pressured Mexico through diplomacy, coaxing extraditions, expanding intelligence sharing partnerships. All of that was on his back, making the strategy possible. I'm a big fan of this, and I can't believe it took this long.
Listen, I'm in 100% agreement with you, and he also Rubio did the same thing with Russia, sending 2 nuclear-powered ships over there. So I think that was an amazing move. Listen, we're dealing in a world, and I don't think Trump gets this out enough. This is often why I bring this up to you. I don't think this administration gets this out enough about the amount of messes they have to clean up. This is so important, why we have to agree as a group, as a party, and not be singleness of purpose type like the left are. And we have to say what are the things that are most important to us, because all these messes are not going to be cleaned up in 3.5 years. We're looking at least a 12-year project. And many of these things are going to have to be fixed via the Congress, so that the next person that comes in, whenever that Democrat gets in, they can't turn it over with executive action. Now, I want to move on, though, to something that, see, here's the problem. And I love Trump, and I understand why he got the DOJ off of Eric Adams' back. I do. And he felt like he was being beat up for nothing, and he probably pretty much was being beaten up for nothing. But at the same time, man, I wouldn't have minded if he was replaced as mayor of New York City, because as Trump is trying to bring now support for Adams, and he's like, trying to really build up his race, not literally, but it's almost like it seems like a flaw. Had Hochul gotten rid of him, New York might be in better shape right now.
Who would they have replaced him with?
Adams?
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody else could have run as a Democrat.
But that's the thing, is that Hochul's just lost. I mean, that woman doesn't know what the hell she's doing. She's a terrible governor. That great state, the Empire State, has been in decline since, let's say, Giuliani left office, or Bloomberg. Right? So I don't know. I don't know who would be better than Adams.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not disagreeing with you that Adams has a certain thing to him, but the reality is, again, I'll say it, 21% of voters voted in the last election. If Trump could somehow bring up 8% of that, get it to 28%, then Adams wins. There's no way that Cuomo is dropping out of the race. He already announced he isn't. So that's been there, done that. So we need to pray. I mean, really, as a country, we have to make a decision. Do we let New York burn, or do we or does Trump try to come in and rescue it? And I don't know, to be honest with you, the answer to that.
Of course, yes. Look, nobody's nominating Eric Adams for best mayor in America. Obviously, his approval ratings are in the basement. He's had scandals and all sorts of, even though the scandals are kind of bullshit. But he doesn't have all the optics you would want to have for the kind of banner mayor that New York should have. But here's the blunt truth, and it's a truth that we have to face. If the next mayor could actually be Zohran Mamdani, that's not just bad policy. Like with Eric Adams, maybe some bad policy. Here, you're talking about a national security risk. Mamdani is I hesitate to even call him a politician. Let's just call him what he is, a jihadi in sheep's clothing. He wraps himself in social justice. He's the kind of guy that goes off to Uganda where they slaughter their gays. And I'm sure if he had his druthers, and this is not libel or slander because I'm just stating an opinion, I have a feeling that deep down inside he would like to chuck all the homosexuals off tall buildings. And there's a lot of them in New York. He's been openly hostile to Israel. He's been soft on terror-linked groups. He's basically allergic to enforcing immigration law. He wants to silence the police. All of this is not progressivism. It's just ideological infiltration. And at the end of the day, we can call him radical. Bill Maher, for instance, doesn't like the guy. He says, oh, his radical views. They're not radical views. We can stop pretending. Mamdani's worldview lines up with the same terror apologist networks that undermine America from the inside. The guy has a track record of excusing extremism, demonizing our allies, treating law enforcement as the enemy. It's not even about liking Adams, by the way. You don't have to like Adams. Sometimes you have to block a pro-Hamas, anti-Israel, anti-American, anti-security radical from running the country's largest city, especially one of our financial hubs, the financial hub of the United States. Let's assume I'm wrong, okay? And he's not a jihadi, but he does want to turn everything into a socialist hellhole. The same thing. Ultimately, once a radical or whatever you want to call him, like Mamdani, takes over New York, they're going to start to export that model to other places. We're already seeing it happen in some spots. It'll go to Seattle. It'll go to Chicago. It'll go to LA. And eventually, it'll end up in the halls of Congress. This is like a test balloon. It's a pilot program. And Trump's play here is obvious. You back whoever can win against Mamdani. If that's Adams, great. That if you don't like it, swallow hard and do it anyway. Because if someone else existed, great, even better, do that. But pretending we can sit this one out while Islamification of our city accelerates is simply political suicide and American suicide, period.
Having Trump come in and try to help Adams may actually backfire because there's so much polarization. So many people just hate Trump just because they believe all the nonsense they've been reading on him for the last 4 years, that they think that anything he says or anything he touches is tainted. So that's why you have these lunatics going from Mamdani. I agree with you. Get out the vote, which is what the message should be, is that everybody should be getting out to vote.
Right. And especially when you look at how well he did in the Bronx and certain boroughs. So just for people to understand, New York has 5 boroughs, and New York City is one of those boroughs. So is the Bronx. So him getting out that Bronx vote, him getting out that deep Brooklyn vote where there's a heavy, and again, this wasn't, by the way, there have been charts, man. It wasn't the blacks and the Latinos that were voting for Mamdani. It was other groups, including our own. So we have the goal is to get those other groups even more out there and really get out the vote. Man, that situation terrifies me, and it should terrify everybody in America because look how easy it's being done, and it could be a city near you anytime soon.
But I mean, you don't even have to look at what you think about what it would be done. Look at Chicago with Brandon Johnson, whatever his name is.
Brandon Johnson.
They ran out of funds because they gave it all to the illegals, and now he's raising taxes on everybody. I mean, the people there hate him, and it's a socialist cesspool. It's a hellhole. There's 45, 50 people shot every single weekend. Look at Washington, D.C. This is now in the news again because Trump's talking about sending in the troops to Washington, D.C.
Not sending in the troops. He's actually, there's a law that they could actually, in the Congress, take over Washington, D.C.
Right.
Well,
he would have to get Congress to pass that. But there's another thing that he has where he could temporarily take over the police station and send in the National Guard, and that he could do without Congress. So I think he should be doing both. They should take over Washington, D.C. I heard a great statistic. Not great, but telling statistic. 88% of the violence in Washington, D.C. involves guns. The murders involve guns. less than 2% of people who are caught with an illegal firearm are sent to jail. So there's the problem. It's not even about catching the people with the guns.
It's the releasing.
It's the releasing. There's no repercussions. So you have these kids, and most of the crimes are being committed by, like, I think it's 14-year-olds. So you have kids with guns shooting other kids. You know, if I was a black mom living in Washington, D.C., I'd be begging for more police and enforcement and jail. And I get it that a lot of black kids get caught up in that. And I'm not talking about petty crime like drug dealing or loitering or loud music or any of the other nonsense. I'm talking about actual violence. And most of it happens to be black on black. So if I was a mom that lived in Washington, D.C., and I was a single black mom and I had 2 kids at home, I would be begging for more police. I would want the bad guys locked up so that my good kids don't wind up getting shot by a bad guy. The fact that the elected leaders in these places are all advocating for less police, less jail time, in a sense, they are advocating for more dead black kids. And that's the result. That is the direct result of their advocacy.
Listen, you're 100% correct. The only thing I'll push back on a little bit is I'll say to you that, Giuliani, that is what he cracked down on. He cracked down on the loud music. He cracked down on and I'm blanking on the name of it right now, the broken glass.
Well, his idea was, and I'm all for this. His idea was, if you find someone committing any kind of crime, the most small, whatever, jaywalking, stop them, question them, and frisk them, and then let them go, right? So that was it. It wasn't about giving tickets for jaywalking or throwing your chewing gum on the street, but it was about having an excuse to find out whether people are carrying a gun, whether they are actual real criminals that are, have
You're 100% right.
And it's called, and all that stuff.
You're 100% right.
And
it's called broken windows. And it was a lot of things. And you remember this, and I remember this. It was, remember when you would drive down the street in New York and you'd have the people come and spraying your window?
The bucket pishers. They pee in the bucket and wash your window with it. Where do you think they're getting the water from?
That's exactly right.
And water fountains.
And he got rid of that. And he really started getting rid of those. But again, Giuliani's first term, it was a nail biter, him versus Dinkins. His second term, he won in a landslide. And the exit polling was so far off because those black moms that you're talking about could not outwardly. I mean, it was sort of like with Trump, they couldn't outwardly say they supported him, but they did support him. And I find it amazing that the Democrat, which was, I know he changed parties, which was Bloomberg, Giuliani could have easily won a third term, and New Yorkers would have supported a third term had he tried to do that. But it was Bloomberg that put the third term in. And it really started the destruction of New York City. I want to move on, though. You brought me this Vandenberg coalition poll. I think this is, listen, this is obviously one poll. I'm not familiar with them, but they are a nonpartisan organization. So why don't you let it rip?
Yeah. So Vandenberg did a poll, and they're polling Republican voters and then MAGA crowd. So 9 out of 10 Trump voters believe that it's important for the United States to be the most powerful country in the world. There was another poll that they did, the same poll, but another question. Nearly 70% of Trump voters said that they would support the president if he decided to attack Iran again. 90% of MAGA voters said that they would support Trump if he attacked Iran again. So what this proves is that what Candace and Tucker and Bannon and everybody who was talking about World War III was going to happen if we attacked Iran, and that the MAGA base does not support it, this proves that is all bullshit. It is wrong. MAGA does support it. Republicans overwhelmingly support it. And to the tune of 96% of MAGA voters said that it's critical that Iran not get a nuclear weapon.
It's really scary what the media has been able to do to sort of try and divide the party when there's an actual poll that says there's absolutely no division. So What are your thoughts on that?
You're absolutely right. The majority of Republicans now say MAGA, not just GOP, but MAGA specifically, is the thing that they are most aligned with. The MAGA movement isn't just a wing of the GOP anymore. It's the beating heart of it. And I don't think that's a bad thing. MAGA simply means make America great again. And I think ultimately that's really what the party is trying to do, is reverse some of these policies that weakened the United States, that weakened us economically, that weakened our power on the world stage, all of that. And when you're talking about a majority of Republicans supporting MAGA, that means that it is time for us to stop believing the grifters. Why do we keep hearing that MAGA is turning on Trump? Because of those charlatans that need you to think there is a civil war inside the tent. You're talking about people like Candace Owens. And by the way, even people that are not part of the right, woke right, but people like Chunky Uyghur over there on the other side of the line, saying the same thing. There's all this alignment now. You see Marjorie Taylor Greene and Chunk Uyghur having the exact same conversation, the exact same opinions. I bring up Chunky only because I just saw a video of him going after Hamas, going after how these kids in Gaza are indoctrinated from years ago, things he would never say today, because now I think somebody's paying him to say the opposite. Same thing with Glenn Greenwald. Same thing, especially with Tucker Carlson, the leader of the Heil Hitler brigade of the woke right. They're playing this sly, we love the movement, we love Trump, but it's always a big but, right? It sounds organic. But you ask yourself, who's benefiting from that break in the base's spine? And I'll say what it is. I think we've mentioned it on the show a number of times. To me, it smells like Qatari money. Now, whether that's Qatar, whether that's Iran, whether it's Russia, and of course, Tucker changed his opinion once he visited a bunch of those places. Weird. But let's just focus on Qatar for a moment. Qatar, they have a vested interest in seeing America distracted. They have a vested interest in seeing America divided, and they push foreign policy that undermines us and props up regimes we shouldn't be in bed with. It happens over and over and over again. That's why Tucker is interviewing people from the Iranian government. That's why Tucker is going over to Russia and talking about how great everything is here. And look at how clean the train stations are. And look at how there's no crime. Ultimately, MAGA's core, as we talked about, is America first. That means border security. It means energy independence. It means standing with allies like Israel. Yes, all you racist assholes. It does mean that too. It means stopping the endless wars or finding a way to do it. Trump is doing it once again. He is finding ways in areas of the world we didn't even know wars were going on to stop wars.
No, I love that you brought this up. And here's the thing. Here's the problem with loud voices, and why I've said we can't call them lunatics, just like I was very careful with the people on the left when we started calling them lunatics, because it can be contagious. So yes, I agree. I don't think the numbers are nearly as high. I think there's crossbreeding as far as who listens to who downloads who. I'm sure the same people that listen to Tucker, listen to Candace, listen to Alex Jones. I'm sure there's a crew, and it could be 5 million people. I mean, and that's a big number, but compared to the rest of the party,
we're 330 million people. Half of them are Republicans. So, it shows that President Trump is right when he says that he's the one who gets to decide what MAGA is, because Trump does polls all the time. He's trying to figure out where the base is and what they believe in. And the conversation about forever wars, it was a 12-day war. It's not a forever war. It was shorter than Scaramucci's time in the White House.
It wasn't even our war. And that's quite funny. It wasn't even our war. Again, let's break that back down. It wasn't our war. We sent a bomb in. Never have there been United States boots on the ground fighting for Israel ever.
And I am all for that. I don't like the U.S. sending boots, our boys and girls, to go fight foreign wars,
but
even if it's our war. Even if it's our war. This is what I'm saying, is that when it came time for for us to take out the Taliban or Saddam Hussein, the whole idea of nation building was horseshit. It was a waste of precious resources, but more importantly, it was a waste of American lives. What we should have done is you take out the top leadership with a couple of cruise missiles. The next guy who comes up and he goes, Alhamdulillah, I will kill America. Boom, he comes out. And you do that 4 or 5 times until some guy gets up there and then you say, hey, you want to be play nice or do you want to do what the other guys did? and that's it. You'll see how fast they start playing nice. It's what Putin did in Chechnya. Putin was involved in this bloody war in Chechnya, and it was his Vietnam. In Chechnya, he got a guy and he put him in place, and he goes, you know what, you're going to run the country. You're my guy. The guy pledges allegiance to Putin. He's a gangster, and that's it. No more problem. No more problem for Putin. A lot of problem for Chechens, but no more problem for Putin. Another thing from this poll that we saw was that the conversation about forever wars, 4% of the respondents said that they were dissatisfied with Trump's foreign policy. Just 4%. 96% of Republicans back Trump's foreign policy. Let that sink in. It's overwhelming. It's off the charts.
I'm the person that wrote before this last election, for the Daily Caller, who's the best foreign policy president of my lifetime. And I think he's the best foreign policy president of any lifetime. I would ask anybody to find a differing person than Donald Trump. I don't think there is. And that's what I think gets him so upset about this, is because how much does one man have to prove? It's a constant thing where it's like, okay, I have to prove to the left, but now I have to prove to these idiots in my party, and not even a huge amount, but they are the loudest.
So and you guys were saying that the other day, and I think I didn't quite understand it from the perspective you were coming from, and now I get it. I hear what you're saying, and yes, he doesn't have to prove it to the party, although messaging to the party is really important, and it's good. It's the thing that people said about Trump's first presidency was that he was not presidential. And they were like, Obama's such a statesman. He's so presidential. You look at this time around, Trump is killing it on that front. When shots are taken at him, he just brushes it off and he doesn't even respond to it for the most part. And from within his own base, when the Tuckers come out screaming and yelling nonsense, howling into the wind, he tells them that it's nonsensical. What are you talking about? And he tells them they don't get to decide. He gets to decide. And he made the right decisions. And he's going with it. And the nation as a whole, but especially the Republican Party, sees that. They see his decisive decisions that he's been making, and they agree with it. It's all for the good. Even with this trade war that we've been doing, it's working out beyond anyone's expectation. We're going to start paying down our national debt.
And the America First agenda is what becomes a nightmare for foreign actors who thrive on U.S. chaos and dependency. This is the divide and conquer concept. If you can convince a unified group of people that there is conflict within, you can take over. This is, as we talked about before, exactly what CARE talked about when they were caught by the FBI on tape discussing the takeover of America, chipping away little by little until they're able to seep their way in. And, Mamdani becomes mayor of New York. This latest poll is not just numbers. It's proof that the divide and conquer play is failing and the movement is more united than ever.
Well, they also understand that MAGA means make America great again, not make America pure again. That would be like MAPA.
We have MAPA. There's a copyright thing. Make Americans proud again, which is part of American exceptionalism.
Okay, well, we're you know what I'm referring to, the purity test. But I want to move on to a couple more stories. One of them is, I love the fact that Gina Carano won this lawsuit against Disney. I think this is great. I think for a long time there was, and we've brought it up on the show, where people say you can't sue, and Israel right now is weighing whether to sue the New York Times over libel. And
they should.
But there are problems if a country could actually do it. Ariel Sharon actually did it against Time magazine because they libeled him. So I'm not sure you could actually do it as a country, say you libel the country. So they're actually looking into that. I'm sure they have some very good lawyers looking into it. But big wins for Gina Carano, big wins for Melania Trump getting James Carville to back down from his asinine post last week about her, and Epstein, and with Trump.
What did he post about Melania? What did he say?
He essentially said how Trump met Melania was through Jeffrey Epstein.
Nice. Gina Carano getting her job back is fantastic. I just wish, and honestly, I wish these companies would stop dipping their toes in politics. You watch the NBA because you want to see some guys throwing hoops. You don't want to see all kinds of political statements. Either way, I don't want to see Republican or Democratic talking points when I'm watching a game. Not that I watch a lot of NBA. We talked about going to the baseball game the other day. It was so fantastic. I have no idea what political party any of these people belong to, but they all stood up and sang the national anthem and sang "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." Is it ball
Yes, you
game?
got it right finally.
Okay, take me to the ball game. So, and there's something so beautiful about that. You realize that a stadium of 40,000 people and everybody's just one nation. Mexican guy behind me who couldn't speak English, and the redneck in front of me who was, cheering and screaming. They were all cheering for the same team. It was fantastic. It was great. So, good luck for Gina Carano. I'm really happy that she got that settlement. I wish they put her back on the show. She was fantastic on
Well,
Mandalorian.
I don't
Kids
see
loved
that.
it.
I don't see that happening, but and I don't see her really working again, especially in anything mainstream. But she's got plenty of money, and thank God she's going to be okay. But the point is, you can fight back. And even the America First Legal, when they brought that lawsuit for the writer of Paramount, they won that lawsuit. And what I love about AFL is they don't take money for it. Everything that he won, I guess, went to him. So you can fight back, and I think it's extremely important that people know this. And there's
AFL in general is a really good organization, and if there's anyone out there that's facing discrimination for any reason, you should reach out to those guys. It's as Judah said, they don't charge and they fight on the behalf of American civil liberties. So it's worth, one, giving them a shout out because they're doing fantastic work, but two, if there's anybody that needs their services, America First Legal.
Well said. And yeah, I love them. And it was actually Stephen Miller who started America First Legal that said Washington is more dangerous than Baghdad. But there's a big win today. U.S. Appeals Court blocks Trump's contempt proceedings ordered by Boasberg. The 2-1 ruling favors Trump, will likely go to the full court for review or be appealed directly to the Supreme Court. The case involves the administration's alleged violation of emergency court order blocking the 1798 law to deport Venezuelans. So there we are.
So that means we can deport Venezuelans again?
As of now, I guess. Yeah, I would ascertain that from that.
Is that Maduro? Maduro's Venezuela, right?
Yes.
I think we just put a $50 million bounty.
Well, we discussed it yesterday. You don't think we actually did put we actually did put a $50 million to capture, quote unquote, capture him. Rumor, yeah. I mean, I love that they're doing that.
You know what it does is it's going to make him paranoid as hell, because now he's going to wonder every time he has a sit down with a general, is the guy going to pull out a gun and put him under arrest? He's going to see ghosts and demons everywhere.
One general, 9 of them sitting at the table thinking to themselves in Venezuela,
who goes first?
Let's split the money. But in Venezuela, and anywhere, $50 million is a lot of money. Split, 9 ways, you still get, $6.5 million or so.
The only place $50 million is not a lot is in USAID. We were doling that out all over the place. $50 million for you, $50 million for you.
Yeah. So to really just sum it all up, things are going great. Does that mean everything is perfect? No. People want things to move quicker. We all do, but we're seeing the DOJ in action. It takes a long time to build up cases, and they've just built up a case against Tish James. And I'm sure they're building up cases against a lot of people, but it has to be done correctly and it has to be done right, because they are going up against a court in the District of Columbia that is 99% liberal. If they could find the one conservative judge, if he still exists over there, they might get lucky. But this is an uphill battle, but at least they're doing it, man. And this is one of the huge things that when they say, why would you vote? This was a huge voting thing for me, even though I would have voted for Trump. This was a huge, I'm sick of watching conservatives get punished for their views.
Yeah, I think that the thing that they're attacking now with the redistricting in Texas, if they could do that on a national level, where, honestly, they want to do another recount the census, because they say the last census was flawed.
Yeah, that's what Trump wants to do, the first time in 5 years. I mean,
there's another one coming up in, I think, 4 years.
Right. He wants this the first time within a 10-year period that he wants to do it. It's every 10 years, so he wants to cut it into 5.
Well, I say first deport the illegals, do not let illegals to be counted, and then do the census. That's the way it should be done. And I think the way districts should be cut up should be in proportion to the vote. So if you have a 40% state like California, that has 40% Republicans, there should be 40% Republican representation in the House of Congress. We don't have that. I think it's down to like 12% for California, and some places have zero. I think it was Massachusetts. We talked about it earlier. But if we could fix those two things, it would make a massive difference in voter disenfranchisement. It would actually give people a sense that they have actual representation. I don't have representation here in California. It's disproportionate. It doesn't work. And you see California grandstanding, Gavin Newsom saying that if Texas does it, California's going to do something else. California already did it. It's already done. A threat to our democracy, that is the threat.
Yeah, again, here's another guy that's trying to reshape his image to think that he could run in 2028. If people are stupid enough to fall for his crap, I don't know what to say to those people. Everybody was screaming at me for a year. Again, unlike you with the DeSantis, I had so many people saying, Newsom's going to be replacing Biden. I'm like, you're out of your mind. I hope he does. I pray he does, because we live here. We know who he is, and he's not Bill Clinton. He doesn't have that ability to just shift. And that's why people are having such a hard time right now getting at Trump and getting at his administration, because when you look at Bessent, when you look at Ludnick, when you look at his whole cabinet from top to bottom, it is so hard to go after them because they're such seasoned professionals. I don't think we've had, since at least Reagan's administration, such seasoned veterans serving in an administration like Trump has put together. And I might say this might be one of the best administrations ever, especially Marco Rubio.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. As we've talked about, Rubio, to me, is the shining gem of this administration. I like a lot of people here, but Rubio, to me, is really the secret sauce that holds it all together.
It's got a killer team. I love it.
Yeah, I'll just end with this. Don't you find it interesting? Trump hasn't fully endorsed J.D. Vance. And I know Trump sometimes treats this like a game show, and it'll be like the apprentice for the next president of the United States. But he sure talks Rubio up a lot, man.
I think, in the beginning when he selected JD and then they had a couple of press briefings together, he hyped him up like crazy. JD is extremely bright, knows what he's doing, as well as Marco Rubio. So is it the presidential Olympics going on over there? Maybe. I know that you've told me there are many cases in the past where the vice president does not become the automatic pick for the successor, but I don't see how you get away from it. JD Vance is extremely talented. He seems to be on point, great grasp on foreign policy as well as domestic. So I don't see how you sideline JD for Marco Rubio, as great as Marco is. I love them both. It's a tough one for me.
Listen, and it doesn't have to be one or the other. It could actually be both. And I think that's what Trump keeps on implying, and I think that's what Rubio was implying when he said, no, JD's the next one in line. So I trust Rubio. And Golan, your thoughts on that?
Look, I know Mend will not like this, but I'll be blunt. JD Vance is my only real gripe with this administration. I think the guy, I agree with you, super smart, unbelievably articulate, one of those guys that will win the debate every time, especially if you put him up against someone like Kamala Harris. But there's something just off for me. I mean, I think he's got amazing political instincts. They will serve him well. And politically, I think he knows what he's doing. But the more I hear him, the more I realize I just flat out disagree with a bunch of his worldviews. And on paper, I didn't have a problem with him. At first, I liked him. I liked his outsider energy. I liked the fact that he at one point was saying negative things about Trump and then was willing to say, hey, mea culpa, I turn around, I learned, I grew, etc. I liked all of that. But it's not that we hear from him that much. But when we do hear from him, every time I hear, especially on the foreign policy front, I disagree with you on that one, man. I think, nope, that's not where we should be headed. I think you've got that wrong. I think you're making a mistake. What's frustrating to me is that Vance now is parroting certain Trump policies that I'm not convinced he actually believes, and especially when it comes on the international stage. To me, that's kind of a bigger issue. It feels more like positioning than conviction. And I don't know, that's a red flag for me. Now, on the other hand, Marco Rubio, as I mentioned before, maybe my favorite guy in the whole administration. I liked him at the beginning. I already was a fan. I like him more and more every day. The man is disciplined. He's clear on national strategy. He delivers results. He's not afraid to speak truth to power. And case in point, the anti-cartel strategy we were just talking about. Rubio doing that, that's leadership. That's not performance art. And I don't think Rubio is going to try to jump the line. I think you're right, Judah. I think that you're right. He's not going to try and jump ahead in 2028. But it actually kind of worries me that he's not going to do that, because I would love to see Rubio be president. I think he is the kind of guy that could really, really make a difference, like Trump, but with a little bit less of that bombastic energy, which I know some people think is kind of the gravy over the meal. I think Rubio does it in a different way. He does it slyly and smartly in a way that I think is disarming. So I think he has a similar power to what Trump has. And I have to admit, I am a little worried about what happens if the Vance contingent, which feels a little bit Donald Trump Jr., Tucker Carlson kind of wing of the party, if that contingent grabs the wheel. To me, it doesn't feel like a governing coalition. It feels like an ideological experiment that I don't want to beta test on the country. I'm a bit worried about it. I feel like Rubio's the grown up in the room. I'm happy with what's happening. The one guy that I am not gung-ho about is Vance. And I think that Trump not speaking up about him on a regular basis speaks to that. I think he realizes that maybe this guy's not on the same corner.
So I want to thank everybody for listening. And I want to remind everybody, you could find us on YouTube at The Daily Cheat Sheet. We're now on Rumble, thanks to Golan at The Daily Cheat Sheet. We're on Instagram at Daily Cheat Sheet, Substack at The Daily Cheat Sheet, Truth at The Daily Cheat Sheet. You could also find myself and Golan on The Daily Cheat Sheet, X at TD Cheat Sheet, and we will be posting more on Instagram so everybody can see the lovely Mend and his minute thoughts. On that note, I want to wish everybody a good morning, afternoon, and night world, wherever you are. God bless you all.